Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Joining us right now is Deval Patrick. He's the former governor of Massachusetts and now a senior advisor at the private investment firm, the Vistria Group. He's also co-director of the Center for Public Leadership at the Harvard Kennedy School. Deval, great to have you here. And I want to kind of pick up. Absolutely. I want to kind of pick up where we left off with our last guest, Mark Lipschultz, of course, a pioneer in the private credit space. You have a long history in the investment space, particularly on the private equity side, and now, of course, in your role at the Vistria Group here. How is business right now?
Business is good. You know, we are facing some of the same challenges everyone else is. But because we take a view of long-term value, which is, you know, how do you build an economy company by company that is good, not just for shareholders, as important as that is, but also for employees, for members of the community, for the environment. And I think that shift in thinking about capitalism as being more inclusive is exactly what the Vistria Group is about, and frankly, where lots of our trends are pointing. So from that perspective, I think our prospects are very, very good.
Well, can you give us some specific examples of potential investment opportunities with the idea of inclusive capitalism, the idea of making an impact? Because I'm sure, as you know, Deval, and we've come a long way over the last 4 years where everybody seemed to be talking about a reimagining of capitalism to today, where we have this huge pushback where now everyone just wants to keep their head down and not saying anything.
Well, I don't know how huge it is. It may be a few leaders who are trying to keep their heads down, but it takes some courage, really, to lead us to the next place. And frankly, there are a lot of secular trends, especially from young people, who are insisting that capitalism cannot be just about a few winners and everyone else being losers, that we have to have a way of thinking about value that includes the interests of all of those affected. And frankly, what we have seen in our own investment here is that there's a premium to be harvested for that, for everybody. So we're investing in some sectors that are inherently impactful. That is healthcare, for example, knowledge and learning, or education generally, financial services, the kinds of things that are fundamental for people being able to lift themselves and their families into the middle class and to sustain themselves there. And we are measuring both the financial return and the ways in which we can drive that, and the very much connected social or environmental impact. And we've been able to deliver both superior returns and measurable, meaningful, and lasting impact. I think that's exactly what capitalism ought to be and can be.
At the same time, healthcare plus private equity have equaled a lot of negative headlines in recent years, and
we've been following that.
Yeah, and we've seen regulators take a closer look into this sector and the involvement of private equity firms. What kind of level of scrutiny? What's your sense of regulators devoting resources into looking into private markets and their investments in this space, since this is a space you're pretty active in?
So, Scarlet, the first thing I want to say is I want to acknowledge that the regulators and others who are policymakers have reason to be concerned about what's going on in healthcare. Not all of that is attributable to or because of private equity. We have a really fractured, overly complicated healthcare system that is often about sick care and not healthcare. So I want to make that point, first of all. Mm-hmm. Secondly, I think there are a number of proposals we've seen out there, including ones from the federal government on a set of principles around healthcare, private equity, and its involvement in healthcare that, frankly, we've been doing already and seem to make sense to us. We're taking a closer look at them. We're scrutinizing those and other proposals against our own set of our own playbook, if you will, with respect to how we invest and why we invest and what our expectations are of the companies that we invest in terms of building them from where they are today to where they need to be. But that is what inclusive capitalism is or ought to be about. I think the best and most effective regulation is not no regulation. It is regulation that is working alongside those of us who are trying to do the right thing and those who are affected by what we're trying to do to make sure we get things in the right balance.
Deval, given all that you said, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I do want to get your thoughts on the passing recently of someone that I know you were close to and that a lot of us really followed in this space, and that's the passing of Christopher Edley. He really sort of espoused for years, for decades really, the idea of how to create a more inclusive economy, a more inclusive society here. And I kind of wonder, and forgive me if this is a wrong question, but where are those thought leaders today? Where is that leadership today coming from to sort of push us forward?
First of all, Chris was a teacher and a friend and a colleague of mine, and my heart goes out to his family and to his professional family, which is huge because we're all feeling that loss. He believed, as I do, that we oughtn't have we should be thinking about how to improve our society from the perspective of one sector alone, right? It's not going to be government alone that solves the big challenges that face humankind. And I say that as someone who was a policymaker and believes in the role of government. It's not going to be the not-for-profit sector alone. It's going to take all of us, including the business and commercial sector. And so taking that broader view about how we include and are conscious of and manage around all of the interests that are affected by business and by our commercial interests is critical. And it is how we will actually solve problems. It's been a false choice for a long time that you had to trade return for impact, that business could just do what it did and only should do what it did to deliver financial return for owners, and the consequences of that would fall on government or the not-for-profit sector. By the way, all of which we all also pay for. Today, the scope and scale of our challenges is such that it's going to take all sectors pulling in the same direction. That's what inclusive capitalism is about. Chris was right about it in his time. I think there are many, many of us, including the as yet undiscovered young people who have been forcing these questions, sometimes in very different language, that we have to learn to listen to as well.
All right. Deval, we really appreciate your joining us today. Deval Patrick is the former governor of Massachusetts. And of course, he is the current co-director of the Harvard Kennedy School of Center for Public Leadership and the senior advisor of the Vistria Group.